Good evening. Happy Wednesday. Happy new comic book day. Got
Mhm.
brand new indie comics talk tonight with Trevor here to talk about Area 51, the Helix Project, issues 1 through 6 now live on Kickstarter. Trevor, how are you doing tonight?
Yeah, it's great to be here. We ran into each other a couple times over the last handful of months at shows, so it's cool to be able to sit down and talk without the hustle and bustle of a convention surrounding us.
Yeah. The cons have lots going on at them, and I think when we were talking at the last one, it was Saturday. It was crazy, and much better to have a chance to sit and kind of talk in a nice quiet environment.
I agree. Yeah, without like the risk of being trampled by somebody dressed as the the metal guy from Stranger Things.
Yeah, I did film a couple interviews during Fan Expo, but it
Mm.
was hard. It was hard to even one, get creators the time to do it, and then two, uh to hear what they were saying.
Yeah.
Even my microphone setup did not pick up everything, but I'm still editing some stuff from that.
Man, I have horror stories from like back in the day, like prior to like writing and creating comics. I was interviewing creators and doing reviews and such. And I remember the first show that I had ever tried to interview a creator. I was really privileged. I got to talk to Jason Fabok and Peter Tomasi, and I mean, the Jason Fabok interview is certainly not a fine piece of audio, but the Peter Tomasi one unfortunately came out to be like almost completely undistinguishable from like robot noises, and
Oh
so
no.
so I can 100% relate to the
Yeah.
position that you were put in.
I'm like, I was reassessing my setup as I was doing the interviews. I'm like, all right, this is what I need for next time to make things better.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, so we're gonna talk about your comics tonight. So I guess to start out, tell everyone watching who you are, how you got into reading comics, and then what led you to the path of wanting to write comics.
Yeah, loaded question for sure. My name is Trevor. Insert my incredibly long last name here. But if you'd like to know how to pronounce it, it's Fernandes-Lenkiewicz. Um, I actually started reading comics a lot later than most people do. Like I think around the age where more guys tend to find their interest in other guys or gals, I actually finally got into comics. I was like 16, 17. And I had somehow gotten first thing I ever read, and it was a couple years after it had actually come out, was Final Crisis by Grant Morrison and J.G. Jones. And where most people might have gotten sort of confused or petrified, and I was confused, but that was almost like what made the whole thing enticing. I was like, okay, like Batman's dead, Wonder Woman is being controlled by an evil looking mask, and Superman singed his way to victory, or sung his way to victory. And so I was like, where do I go from here? I was like, okay, this Grant Morrison guy, it says that he just did Batman. So I went back, read through his entire Batman run, really enjoyed it. And then at that point, I was lost. So I went into the comic book store for the first time. I was like, what is there for me to read? I want to do Batman. I want to continue this Batman stuff. They're like, well, this creative team just did this story called The Court of Owls, that everybody's talking about. And so I bought that first trade paperback and devoured it. Like I
Yeah.
read it probably twice in one night, and then went back to the comic book store, got volume 2, which is the continuation of Court of Owls. And I remember again sprinting through that. And once I realized that like the only way I was going to be able to read that next volume was by paying for the hardcover, I anguished, over being like a super broke 17-year-old who had to drop the extra $8 on the hardcover.
Yeah.
And then eventually, because I was so addicted by that point, I started picking up comics monthly, because around that time they were in the middle of Zero Year. I was able to get a couple of the previous back issues, between where Death of the Family ends and Zero Year starts, and from that point on, I was hooked. Went from reading Batman to adding Detective to Justice League to other members of the DC universe, and then eventually Marvel, and now I'm like a massive indie head. So yeah, that's just kind of the trajectory in terms of, yeah. I mean, writing comics now. I was interviewing at Marvel for an editorial internship back in this would have been March of 2019, and things were going well. Or excuse me, March of 2020, and then the pandemic happened. So the opportunity kind of got wrenched away from me, and I sulked around for a couple months and had correspondence with them, but they, nobody knew what was going on with the pandemic, and uh,
Yeah.
and we, they didn't know when they were going to be back in the offices. So eventually, I was just like, you know what, I just lost basically a year of my early 20s. I don't really want to ask for permission to do what I want to do anymore. So I set myself the Kickstarter, and that's where Area 51, the Helix Project, was born.
Sounds like quite a journey there.
It certainly was not an easy one, but it was a journey
Yeah.
nonetheless.
I started reading, I think it was like 22, 23 was when I started reading comics. I started like super late, but
Okay.
I did the opposite. I started Marvel and then kind of went in from there. But I feel like most people that I talk to, it's one of those. Something on one side of the big two pulled you in, and then most people end up in indie comics and loving the stories in indie comics even more so than Marvel, DC.
For sure. I mean, there's definitely a purity there. It's unapologetically, motivated by stories and things that matter to the creatives, and not
Yeah.
that isn't the case for big two stories, but there's a lot of interference from larger corporate entities that have to sell merchandise.
Yeah.
So it tends to get muddied a little bit.
Yeah, there's always like you said, Court of Owls is one of those stories that always comes up as a really good story to check out. I still have not checked it out, but
You have to, man.
it
Listen,
is one that's on the list of, once I get through all of my, giant TBR pile that I've got over there,
yeah,
it'll happen.
yeah.
But yeah, so, I mean, there's always those stories from the big two that come out. It's like, yeah, this is a gem. Everyone needs to check this one out, or whatever the case. But I feel like even more so indie comics, you see that come up. It's like, hey, this one tells this powerful story about this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like I said, man, I think that distillation of like pure expression, and being able to own that story, both like in a legal sense and in a personal sense, really
Yeah.
contributes to, I think, a little bit more intimate storytelling for sure.
Yeah, you have editors, but you don't have editors that say, well, overall universe says you can't do that.
Or,
Or
you don't have
people
editors coming down on you and saying, listen, Toddy is making a toy and we really need that toy to be in this book, okay?
Yeah, but some of those toys are pretty cool.
Yeah, I think I've never indulged myself. I feel like that is a very slippery slope, like getting
Oh
into
yeah.
buying collectible toys. So I never really let myself get that far. Most of what I have were gifts because people knew I wanted these things, but I
But you
couldn't.
weren't gonna purchase them.
Yeah, I couldn't justify it, man, because that's
Yeah.
the thing, is that people sometimes think that I have an enormous amount of self-control, but the problem is that I have none. So if I let myself anywhere near the possibility of doing something, then it's all over. So it's like I have to go totally cold turkey with stuff.
I get that. I get that. I'm looking at like across the other side here, and there's like probably 30 to 50 Funko Pops that are just Spider-Man related.
Wow.
Like,
Oh wow, no kidding. I appreciate that most of them are out of the box.
oh yeah, yeah. The ones that are in the box are the ones that are like over $100 like value. So I
Mhm.
was like, all right, I guess I'll keep those safe.
Yeah, I have like 5 pops. And I keep them in the box strictly because they're stackable.
That is
So I can,
that is also a bonus.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I can somewhat relate, but most of those were actually gifts too. You know, it was just
Yeah.
like I saw like Dark Knight Returns pops, and I was like, that's oddly specific. You
Yeah.
know.
The only thing I've let myself like go crazy on like statues is like Spider-Gwen, Spider-Man. I've got a couple. And then I started getting some stuff for like Jujutsu Kaisen over here.
Mhm.
So I've started manga related little mini figures, which is
Mm.
another slippery slope.
Yeah, I think the one I appreciate the most is back when I was like first getting into comics, like really getting into reading comics. My little cousin had bought me a Batman Zero Year, like Greg Capullo
Yeah.
Batman, because he just knew I loved Batman, and he thought I was gonna play with it. So I made sure to like open it up, and it's sitting propped on top of a stack of the Lord of the Rings books. He's just sitting on top of it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. Uh, yeah. I mean, indie comics creators creating toys for their campaigns. I'm into it.
I,
I've
I
seen some do it.
I looked into it. It's just everything I saw looked a little bit too expensive, and I couldn't justify charging, an insane amount of money. Richard, I bought your bottle though. Does that count as a toy? I bought the bottle, right?
Which also, speaking of, Richard has a campaign running right now as well. So be sure to check that out. I still have not gotten to fully read your email, Richard, and I will soon. I promise.
He's
I am very slow at getting through emails sometimes,
mm.
especially when there is a very nicely put together comic attached to it, and I need to spend like some good time.
Oh man,
But
shout out Nerdscum, man. That's really thank you, man. That's really kind of
yeah,
you to say.
appreciate that, Nerd Scum, and yeah, appreciate the support for Pocket Watch Press here as well.
I do my
Uh,
best.
but yeah, so let's bring this back to your campaign now.
Sure.
What is Area 51, the Helix Project?
Yeah, it is a really personal sci-fi thriller story about a half extraterrestrial boy who is kind of forced to excavate the trauma of his past when a mysterious figure reappears in his life and puts his father's murder into question. And this really sends him spiraling into the jaw of a Cold War genetics conspiracy and forces him to face a twisted ghost from his past that challenges everything he knows about himself and ultimately what it means to be human. So, like I said, really personal story, just kind of about reconciling identity with memory and with loss. And what's cool is all the sci-fi stems from real science. My academic background in my undergrad was molecular and cellular biology, so I get to inject the story with a lot of that sort of purity, of the genre,
Yeah.
along with that I think emotional resonance.
Is that like a molecular biology pun in there too, with injecting the?
Not intentionally, but maybe I've just been conditioned into talking that way.
That's all right. I appreciate it. Yeah, no, I got issue 1 from you at Baltimore, and it's still sitting in that pile of Baltimore books that I need to read. But I read through the digitals, and I started reading the first one, and then I was like, I need to know what's next. I need to know what's happening next. And I read through all 5 of them. Like I binged them. This is
Cool.
a bingeable story of
Thanks, man.
like you're gonna want to keep going on it. Some stories you're like, all right, I gotta sit, and I don't want to know what's happening next till like a month later. There are some I like reading month to month.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, I wish I had been on this at the beginning, but I also am like really glad that I just got to read through 5 issues of it right now.
Yeah.
Because I've been very impatient in between campaigns on this. Like,
You're not the
you,
only one,
you
man.
left me on a cliffhanger there. What? No, what's happening next?
Yeah, man. That was by design. I mean,
No, it's good.
when I have to release, because it's all bootstrapped like to the ground indie,
Yeah,
crowdfunding. So knowing that I wasn't able to produce a book remotely close to a monthly basis, I think I'd average anywhere from a tri-monthly to maybe a quarterly basis. And so it's like every issue has to stick hard because even myself, as someone who reads comics monthly, I forget what happens all the time.
yeah,
And so for me, it was just about making the ending to every issue really stick and really convince people to give me the extra 3 months to get the funding and
right.
print the book and all that. So Yeah, it's great to hear you say that, man. Like really, really like glad to hear that it was something that was not just easy to read, but kind of carried you through.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's gonna keep with me until this one comes out, this last issue, and I'm gonna it's gonna be one that I'm gonna reread the second I get everything, because it's a story that I think's worth coming back to again.
Thanks, man. I that was definitely something I was shooting for. Like my favorite comic book writer of all time, maybe my favorite writer of all time is Alan Moore.
Yeah,
And not that I can even get close to remote to comparing myself to him. Um, there's a lot of deliberation in his work, and I think it's what makes his catalog so easy to reread most of the time
yeah,
because you're always pulling new things out of it. And even though this was my first book, I really wanted to attempt to make something that kind of gets a little bit more like I wanted the reading experience to be so rich that people could come back to it and kind of begin to pick up on new connections that are being laid throughout the
Mhm.
sort of brickwork of the story. So I look forward to hearing maybe how your impression of the story might change once you have a moment to like read through the entire story at once.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, there's some stuff at the end of issue 5 that has me sitting like, all right, like I don't want to spoil anything, but like the last panel, there's some stuff I'm like, hmm,
Yeah, yeah, I adore that page. I think that's like, man, with the exception of the last page of issue 6, the finale, like that's man, because
that
that
ending.
yeah, I mean, I will say I think the ending of pretty much every issue kind of like always raised the bar with the last page. Issue
keep
2 was
keep
kind of
making
nuts.
it better and better.
Yeah, issue 3. I think issue 3 topped issue 4, but then 5 happened. And that was all Sam, like he once he got a couple pages into the issue, I was like, "Oh, I need to edit this script so that we can add a little bit of extra impact room." So it was originally a 24 page, it was scripted to be a 24-page comic. And then we readjusted things so that we could add 2 spreads towards the end. And it would also give me the space to have that haunting wordless last page.
Yeah,
Uh,
the
and
emotional impact at the end of the issue is great.
oh, and he delivered that, man. Like shout out to Samuel Iwunze, who is
Yeah,
the interior artist on the book. Absolutely
let's say
killed it.
let's talk about your artist. How did you guys get together on this, and how has the process, I guess, changed from issue 1 till now? Because it sounds like now, especially now, there's a lot of like, hey, I think we should do things this way. Was that
Mhm.
always the relationship between you guys, or has that built up as you've been creating the story together?
Well, we had a really interesting start because I had a different artist for the first 4 issues, and eventually there were just problems with scheduling and I'm trying to think of like the most cordial way to put it, but uh, I just didn't think that the creative relationship was flourishing, and kind of became a little bit more stagnant. And fortunately, the fourth Kickstarter had kind of set a new precedent where we unlocked a second variant cover or a third cover total, and that's where I met Sam. And the thing about the collaborative process with him working on that cover was, his original concept wasn't like perfect right off the bat, but the osmotic process between us to go from where we started to that finished cover, I think was
Yeah,
really kind of special. And when I knew that I was looking to kind of go a different direction, artistically for issues 5 and 6, he was the first person I reached out to, and I was like, let's like I just want to see how you would interpret this world. Can we play around with a couple of character profiles and such?
yeah,
And I just said, um, I want to maintain some level of stylistic similarity, just so that it's not a jarring transition. But at the end of the day, I'm choosing to work with you because I think that you have a skill set that exceeds what we were able to do before. So if you feel like that request that in any way, shape, or form is pulling you back or holding you back, then forget about it. Like keep like
yeah,
haul ass, do what you do best. And I think we just built a great rhythm early on, you know, like just getting to know each other's sensibilities. And you know, for me, like for me, like, so it's not, I don't even think it's just because I'm so early on in my career, but I'm a very character first kind of guy. I don't think that plot matters. I don't think that any of the action matters if there's no emotional weight. And so one of the things we're always pushing is expression. And I think you
Yeah.
guys will notice that especially in issue 6, because it's very much a combustion chamber between two characters. Issue 6 is, at least. And so Sam is just like, once we, the thing is that with him, it's never massive overhauls. It's always like he gives me something great and I'm like, okay, we can fine tune this, we can push this a little bit further. And I think that's where we get those really emotional and expressive moments that allow, you know, the readers to really connect to those characters and their journeys, you know.
Yeah. Uh, I'll be honest. I did not catch the fact that there was a different artist
Uh-huh.
between issues. So going for that no jarring difference worked.
Oh, good.
I think he pulled that in very well because I did not notice. The one thing I did notice is in issue 5, there's a lot more, I guess, unique paneling
Hmm.
in those splash pages, which I really liked. Uh,
Yeah.
so that
Yeah.
was something that he pulled in really well for that. So that was probably him kind of saying, let me go wild here.
Well, yeah. Well, you know, I mean, I tend to go pretty full script, you know, and I have
Yeah.
a lot of direction, but it's always with the disclaimer that like I want to set up a feeling and an atmosphere and a mood, and you as the artist are going to be best at translating that visually. So if
Oh
I'm
yeah.
laying something down and you have an idea of a way to make this more efficient or more effective, then let's talk about it. Let's workshop it. But I mean, the way Sam and I were, like, it was just really osmotic. You know, that first spread for issue 5, is
Yeah.
pages 2 and 3. You know, we were talking about having this moment of the consequences of the present really crumbling down upon our fond memories of the past,
Hmm.
and the way that we were able to kind of play around with that sort of broken glass, like, motif or construction, and then using like some of the impact from the physical fighting that's going on to kind of shatter out upon the juxtaposed memories. I think really kind of played well, like metaphorically, with what we were going
Oh yeah.
at. And then I don't, you know, I was really proud of what we did on that last double page spread, the red and black one,
Yeah.
because I kind of, that came out pretty fully formed in my head in terms of the way we were designing the page,
Okay.
because I wanted to do something striking early on when I was really, and I'm still learning, I'm always learning, but when I was kind of beginning to pick up on the basics, you know, writing the beginning of the series, I was almost concentrated on adding a cinematic element to the comics. And now that I feel like I had really gotten a hold of that, I was like, okay, we can deliver that sort of cinematic quality, but it needs to be wrapped up in things that you can only do in comics. And comics give you that graphic design element, that page design element
Hmm.
that is really unique. And for once I realized what Sam was capable of, I was like, all right, we're just gonna go for it all the time.
Yeah. Bring it in. Bring
Yeah.
it all in there.
Yeah, and there's a couple moments in issue 6, one early on in particular, where literally in the script it says, "Sam, I don't know if we can do this, but but fuck it, I wrote it anyways." So I was like, "Can this work?" And then I just get an email back from Sam after he reads the script. He goes, "I don't know if it'll work, but we're gonna try it anyways." So, you know, that's one of the most exciting parts about the collaborative process too, is just finding somebody who is an intuitive visual storyteller that's willing to push what we even think we're capable of, because I think it makes the
Yeah.
both of us better for sure.
Yeah. I mean, you challenged him to see what he could do here, and I mean, on issue 5, definitely delivered very well with all that.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. And yeah, I even, I mean, everything about that fifth one, I'm just incredibly proud of the team. Like, Marcio's colors were vibrant and beautiful, and the way that um he and I had really begun to try to lock in on the finer details. Like if you read issue 5 again, you'll notice that the color of the panel gutters changed consistently throughout the issue, and that was a very deliberate choice we were making to try to change the flow of the read and direct the eye. So like if you go back and you read that issue, any of the
Mhm.
scenes that were underground in the laboratory of Area 51 were all black
Black.
gutters, and they were meant to feel claustrophobic and draw your eye inward toward the color. Or you have that sort of origin story trauma memory from the Colonel. It's white. It's meant to feel open and kind of ghastly in a way.
Yeah.
And then you finally get into the when I'm trying to do my best not to spoil it, but once you get out into the desert, there is this moment of joy, where we get to really take advantage of the color palette that comes from the sun beginning to set, and play with the way we're spotting even the panel gutters using the colors that are found in that palette.
Yeah, I was just looking at it again as we were talking about it, kind of like going through that. It was actually like there was, I, I think, that bit translates best in the physical,
Mm-hmm.
because when I read another book that did something similar, completely missed it. I
Really?
caught some of that like reading through this, but um, Cover the Dead with Lime, which is coming from Blood Moon Comics right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it starts out like white, like a light, like the bleed area is white, and then it starts going gray, and then it went black as the story got darker and things
Mm-hmm.
were getting more intense, and like people were starting to die and like the zombie thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was reading through a digital copy before it came out, and my brain was looking at the art and I was enjoying the art.
Yeah.
But I also think like the black draws you into the art, like you
Mm-hmm.
said.
Yeah, yeah, and that was certainly like a choice that I don't think the average reader is going to notice. It's meant to perform a lot of like subconscious work.
Right.
Like it's. I mean, ultimately, like when you're telling a story, whether it's in comics or another medium, like you're manipulating the viewer or the reader, and so
Yeah.
it's really just another way of us trying to visually manipulate the reading experience in a way that
Oh
most
yeah.
people aren't really gonna be able to pick up on.
Yeah, you don't even have to know that it's going on to have the
Exactly.
effect.
Right.
Um, and that's I don't know. I like reading comics physically anyway. So when I
Yeah.
get these in physical copy through this current Kickstarter, then I'll enjoy it that way.
Dude, I mean, you saw the print work on that first issue
Yeah.
reprint, and I've become such a material junkie after doing all the research and to get the books printed. I'm so
Yeah.
big on high quality floppies, because I my relationship with floppies are really bittersweet, because I like creatively, or after I started creating, I really started enjoying more of like reading in the trade. It's more
Yeah.
digestible, it feels more premium, but there's something intrinsically linked to comics to have like basically serialized chapters with brand new covers,
Mhm.
and like those experiences feel so singular, and so for me it was like, okay, how do I kind of bridge that gap as best as I can, given that I can't produce a 6 issue unit at a time? Well, I'll make the floppies a little bit more premium, a little bit more
Yeah.
kind of toots them in your hand.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of floppies, but I've been trying to, I feel like, move more towards reading more trades and like saying no to picking up some series in floppies and waiting for the trade.
Hmm.
One, cost, but two, honestly, I'd rather spend more money on Kickstarters and supporting projects that way, and supporting like smaller indie companies than spending more money on like Marvel, DC, and all that, and just pick up their stories and collections and things like that. I'm trying. It's hard to move away from the floppy format. It's a transition, but like I have a bunch of trades that I really want to get to sit and read. I have some of the like Image hardcover books, like
Hmm.
those. I love that format.
Hmm.
and so like I get what you're saying there with like it's a more digestible, like you can kind of go through that whole chapter of the story in one
Mhm.
in one go.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, it's a totally different feeling, and you know, speaking for the little guy, Jeremy, we appreciate the support for sure.
Yeah, it's hard to choose where to spend the money, but there's a lot of good things on Kickstarter. There's a lot of things that are out there that I want to back, and I'm like, I am backing too many things.
Never too many.
I will get you guys on the next project, and maybe you'll have that other project as an add-on.
Yeah, well, you know, I guess
Hopefully.
it's good that you and I met when we did, because now at least you can get a whole series in one foul swoop.
Yeah. Speaking of that, and your proclivity towards kind of trade paperback reading or hardcovers, do you
Mhm.
plan to do another campaign now that this is done for like a trade or
Well,
collected version?
I would like to. The better that this Kickstarter does, the more likely that becomes, because you know, printing a trade is going to be a lot more costly.
Yeah.
And there are a couple things I'd like to do if we go back to trade, like potentially remastering some of the art that
Mhm.
I had to let slide due to deadlines that have kind of always irked me, like going back and looking back at it. Um, but I would really love that. I have like, you know, like wet dreams about having like a really nice spot glossed trade, maybe with some type of foil stamping. You know, like I really adore a well designed trade paperback, and
Yeah.
so it's something I would absolutely kill for this first project. So I'd like to. I think
Yeah.
you know, there's a potential that if we hit some insane numbers on this Kickstarter, maybe I'll have that as a guarantee, as a stretch goal. You know, who knows?
Yeah. I mean, we're right now. You've hit the goal.
Hmm.
I'll pull this up. But we've got 34 days to go, so we could see real good numbers, towards the end.
I would love that. Yeah, I listen. This campaign, I've been saying I'm looking to kick ass and take names, and I'm all out of names to take. So I really want to blow this one up, and that gives me the opportunity to keep the speed at which we're producing new work really high, which is not
Yeah.
something that you know, an indie guy early on is always going to be capable of doing. So that's what I'm shooting for.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a list of wasn't there a list of there they are. The stretch goals here. So nice things to look forward. Metallic foil upgrade for prints. Indie Comics bundle. You got some good creators, I'm sure, attached to that bundle there.
I do. Yeah, I've got a bunch of great talent in there, and guys that I am, you know, it's privileged to have met and to connect with, but also there are people whose work I will gladly champion and share with my audience, and hope that they tag on to as well.
Yeah. But yeah, I think we can do this. We can get all these stretch goals going.
Yeah, I'd like to think so. And then, you know, just to sweeten the pot a little bit, I also added an entirely new set of backer goals as well.
Nice. And days to do it by. We got 4 more days to hit 150 backers. What are
Yeah,
we
I
at
think
right
that
now?
I think we need like 23 people in the next 4 days or something like
22.
that. Even better.
It made it easier. That can happen. People got to get on this. Seriously though, want to like that reading through it. I'll say I read through it today. Read through everything today. I'm
Mhm.
a little bit of a procrastinator with reading, but I knew kind of based on looking through that first one, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna like this. But reading through it, like literally, I didn't want to stop reading, and so that to me is this good of a comic as it can be in terms of like that desire to keep reading the story versus
Thank you.
sometimes I'm like I got to get through this story, I got to
Uh,
get to the end,
mhm.
and maybe I'm enjoying the story, but there's sometimes like the chore of like getting to the end of the story and,
Yeah.
and completing it, and almost like especially books in the TBR, it's like all right, gotta check this off the list. So it's one less book to read, but a series where I genuinely am enjoying every moment reading through it. That's more fun to go through.
No, and that's honestly, it's really great to hear that. I feel like that if I were smarter, I could have like strategically placed this interview to like be like, yeah, this is how I get people to actually read the book. Just be like, have me on your podcast or your YouTube channel so that you're forced to
Right.
read the entire series.
Everybody on board for that reason. You have to read everything now.
Listen, I came to set a precedent for the start of 2023 because I want to win a You Promised Me Comics award. So this is what we're doing. I'm like,
you're eligible for this year now that I've read, and the book's coming out this year. So.
There we go. There we go. Like I said, here to kick ass and take names, and we're all out of names.
You might need some more names to back the Kickstarter though.
No, yeah. You guys are welcome anytime. But and rest assured, yours are not the asses that are going to be kicked. I can promise at least that much. Good stories, good times, and potentially bourbon. Who knows? You meet me at a comic convention, there's a very good chance there could be bourbon involved.
Bourbon is always a good thing to have.
Agreed.
I keep looking at this blurry variant cover that hasn't been revealed yet, and I'm like, this looks pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. And Seth, as you can see, if you scroll up a little bit, I gave a couple examples of some of his recent art, and he's a beast. He's an absolute monster. And if I can also say, he was just great to work with, like really affable guy. I was actually a little bit intimidated working with Seth because he's probably got the highest profile of anybody I've had the pleasure of working with so far. And I was like, oh man, like I have the etiquette sort of built up between the people that I'm already working with. How far can I go? Where would I kind of be doing myself a disservice by being a little bit too docile, And he was just great to work with. And I think we ended up settling on a really solid cover. And I'm stoked for people to see it because I think we're actually in a position to unlock it, which gets me incredibly hyped because that'll be another milestone. The first time we've had 4 covers for one issue.
Yeah, I mean that's looking like a really cool one. Were these covers he did as variants, or these like all fan art?
I think a couple of them are variants. I think the Batman one was fan art.
Okay, that was probably for like the movie that they had recently.
Yeah, but I'm not 100% sure.
Because if this was not a cover for 8 Billion Genies, this really needs to be a cover for 8 Billion Genies.
I think it was. I'd be damned if I could tell you like how you get it or like whether or not it was a store exclusive, but I mean his work is captivating. It's got a massive amount of atmosphere to it, which like to be able to accomplish that in a singular image is bonkers.
We're gonna do a quick
Oh, there you go.
All right, things from another world. Nice.
Answering questions.
Right, I'm keeping that tab open. That's a cool cover. Yeah, absolutely awesome.
Point is, you guys will definitely want to see what Seth had cooking for us. I think once we hit 8K, we will reveal the cover image to give people more of a reason to get on board.
Yeah, and I mean, when we were talking at Baltimore, and you're like, "Hey, David Bepose put a quote on this book," and I was like, "All right, we've had David on the channel before." So that was like one of the things besides the story that like got me like, okay, David really likes this.
That man, let me tell you. So when both David and Dan sent me their quotes, I know exactly. It meant so much to me. I could tell you exactly where I was, what I was doing. I was in a hotel in Toronto, getting ready to go do Toronto Comic-Con, and I was in a little bit of a frenzy because I had less of an inventory of my first print for issue 1 than I thought I did. So I was like, I need to get this to print now, and so. Both of their quotes rolled in within like 20 minutes of each other. Like I was in the shower and I get out of the shower and then I get on the computer and I read those quotes and I thought I was going to cry. Like like to have two really talented writers that I admire, and between the two of them, it spans a pretty tremendous amount of time. David, who has been doing this for a while, but who's kind of a rising star at the moment.
Yeah.
And then you have DG Dan Chichester, who has a seminal Daredevil run with Lee Weeks. Um, it's good to feel like I'm able to appeal to sort of the new school and the old school generation of comics, because I mean, ultimately, like, stories are made to connect with people. So to have that level of reach meant a lot to me, and particularly to be able to do that with two guys I admire so much means the world.
Yeah. And I mean, Marvel's doing themselves a disservice if they ever let David go.
I'd agree, man. He's a talented guy who really cares about what he's doing, and has, I think, a really unique creative voice.
Yeah. I mean, I want to see more of his indie stuff. I want to see some of that come back, but he's doing great things with Savage Avengers right now. So uh, I hope he's got some projects coming up, more projects coming up with Marvel that he can't talk about yet, because I'm excited if more stuff comes from him.
Yeah, me too, man. 100%.
Yeah. So, speaking of other comics, anything else that you've got that you're reading right now that you're like, man, these kind of comics keep me inspired to keep writing?
Oh man, I mean, there are definitely a couple creative voices in the industry. I've been kind of horrible about keeping up with monthly stuff, and then
Yeah.
it kind of got exacerbated because my LCS recently closed, so now I have to find a new store to pick up my monthly
Yeah.
books. But I'm always on the Rom V train.
Mm.
I feel like there's at least some portion of all of my interviews that get dedicated to him, because he is, in many ways, he's kind of the writer that I always wanted to grow up into. And now I'm just like, oh shit, I can't just be a less good Rom V. I really got to pivot now. Because he's so
I
good at.
saw that you did interview him on. I was looking like through the website and
Mhm.
stuff, and then like I saw that, I was like, oh, nice. That's a great person to talk to. I haven't gotten to.
He's so fucking smart. Like I honestly, it's very rare when I feel intimidated by someone's intelligence in the way that I feel intimidated by him,
Yeah.
in a good way. I mean, the guy just knows so much and very much funnels that into his work. Um, he manages to show everybody without a doubt that he is a phenomenal writer with an incredible vocabulary and an incredible grasp on language, without um, kind of overriding the fact that he's working in visual media. And so that's such a difficult balance to strike that so few people in the industry do the way that he does. And he's also just got like a tremendous sense of style, which for me, as, and I mean, yes, fashion wise, but I mean in his writing.
Okay.
um,
Okay. I
um,
wasn't sure which way you were going with
I
that. I
mean,
was like, oh, maybe he's well dressed.
I give him full credit. I've never seen him looking a fool in
Yeah.
person. So yes, I'll give him that credit. But in terms of his writing, yeah, that's hard to find, to have somebody that has that really established sense of style to their writing, while also being versatile enough to play in so many different spaces. Like in a world where you get a book like Blue and Green that's like an existential horror with jazz music, and then like he does a phenomenal Catwoman run for DC. I think that's a special voice in the industry to look out for.
Many Lives of Layla Starr.
Great book.
So good.
Yeah,
And now he's on. I think he's still on Venom, right?
I think
With
Venom
Al
and
Ewing.
Detective Comics.
He's all over the place. He's doing all
Yeah,
kinds of things.
yeah, man. I think there are two guys in the industry who, when they come out with work, I get actively excited, and it's Ram V and Jeff Lemire.
Hmm.
Like unconditionally, it doesn't matter what they're doing. I just get so excited because it gives me something to study from, something to learn
Yeah.
from. Because that's kind of how I approach my reading. I'm always like, okay, what can I learn from this person? What skill set do they have that I don't, that I can maybe begin to try and build? Or are they better at something that I consider myself good at? How do I take myself to that next level,
Yeah.
and sharpen those tools? And those are two guys that they've got an insane utility belt of writers' tools that I only hope to glean some level of experience from.
Yeah. I mean, the Ramvi, anything indie that he puts out, I'm usually on. It's harder for me with like the big two, but
Mhm.
I still want to pick up some of the stuff. I think one of my lights just burn out. I was like, it just got dark in here. It
Have
doesn't
you
show on the camera, thankfully, but
have you read Blue and Green before?
I have not. So
It's
that's one I gotta get.
Jeremy, I have 2 copies of that trade. It's so good. Honestly, like, because they released it as an OGN, and I have one that was signed by Rom and signed and remarked by John Pearson that I keep behind glass, and then I have one copy for me to get incredibly handsy with, because after that interview, Blue and Green has become a perennial reread for me. So I needed one to allow myself to get dirty with.
Okay, so that was I was just looking it up. It was in 2020 that released, October. So that was it's like I feel like I really fully dove into the indie side of comics in 2020 and
Mm-hmm.
just was starting because I moved here in 2020 and I
Okay.
started doing more like YouTube stuff then and started like really just like moving my pool list further and further away from like the big two and more into the indies. So this would have been probably like right around this I was doing that. So I probably missed this at
You
the
should
time.
you should check it out.
I'll have to see if the shop has it.
Without going into like super explicit details, it's probably like one of my 5 favorite comics that have come out in the last 10 years. Like
Okay.
it's a great book, especially for anybody who's listening that is a creative. I
Yeah.
think it's a book that's made to kind of outline the ambitions of somebody looking to pursue something like a creative craft that, in which like the success of your craft cannot be measured by something quantifiable. It's a great book, and a really, really good example of what a creative team looks like when they're firing on all cylinders in a symbiotic way.
Yeah.
It's a masterclass on how to make comics, to be frank.
I am trying to look it up, but I think this is the same creative team that's doing Radio Apocalypse from Vault Comics.
Correct.
Yeah, which I don't know what happened to that series, but we got 2 issues.
Yeah, I think there were a couple complications because Rom had lost his father, and so he had to slow down some of his workload. And from what
Okay.
I understand, had already kind of committed himself to some of those big two schedules. And
Yeah.
it seems
So
like
the
the
indie
Wassell
stuff.
brothers were really amicable to the situation.
You know what? I did hear it's kind of on indefinite hiatus. That's right.
Hmm.
Yeah. One day we'll get the full story. I was really enjoying that one. So I will
Yeah.
probably really enjoy Blue and Green then, knowing that's that creative team even,
And
not
it's
just Romby.
and that's the thing. It shows off Anand Arke's versatility, because the art style in Blue and Green is vastly different from
Yeah.
the art style in Radio Apocalypse, in a great way. Like, both of them are great. Both of them are super effective in terms of telling those particular stories that they are being employed in. But yeah, I mean, I Anand Arke, I think, is an artist in the industry to watch out for too, in a
Oh yeah.
big way.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Great.
you often have artists that stick to a style for their whole careers, and the fact that Anand is like maybe a handful of projects in and has already shown 2 to 3 very drastically different styles is insane. Like,
Yeah.
not to pull the nickname from Israel Adesanya in the UFC, but Anand Arke might be like the artistic style bender, man.
I like that. I like one when you can tell it's the same artist, but two when they can then also twist it and make it that it's not the same style. Like,
Mhm.
I know this is their art, but it looks completely different. Like I like that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, that versatility is a really, really great thing to explore because you're basically going you're fighting up against a lot of your habits and still kind of finding a way to turn out something great. So yeah, the really great stuff. But yeah, in terms of other stuff I'm reading now, you actually caught me in the middle of reading "It's Lonely at the Center of the Earth"
Yeah,
when I was in New Orleans, and that was a fantastic read. That's a great book. It's
highly recommend it.
it is sending me down a rabbit hole of wanting to buy more of Zoe Thorogood's work for sure. And
Impending
also
Blindness of Billy Scott is also incredible.
it
So
it it
do
also
that.
gets me really excited because I found out that she's maybe like a year younger than I am, and she's doing incredible, like tremendous work.
Yeah,
And I had always prided myself on the level of work that I put out given my relative inexperience. And so to see her out there absolutely murdering the entire comic book industry
yeah,
gets me excited. It just gets me hyped up, to
yeah. Oh
go and
yeah.
create cool
It was
things.
something like was it Bleeding Cool just put out an article recently. It was just like, is she the next like big thing in the comic industry or something? It's like she's been the next potentially big thing since like the Impending Blindness of Billy Scott came out. But I think
Mhm.
It's Lonely at the Center of the Earth just kind of solidified that and just said, hey, give her all the projects and let her create what she wants to create
Yeah. Yeah,
because
and
it's gonna be
hope
good.
and hopefully no one stands in her way because she's great at what she
Right.
does. But yeah, man, that's a lot of what I've been getting into. I actually just treated myself to like a stack of trades as like my late Christmas gift to myself. So I got a couple things I want to get through, like Invisible Kingdom by G. Willow Wilson and Christian Ward.
That's in
Um,
my TBR still.
yeah, well, I had to do it, one because the book looked great and it sounded great, and I'm also an unapologetic Karen Berger stan. So, when I found out that this was one of the books that she was editing over at Dark Horse, I was like, oh
Okay.
man, it's a must. I have to check it
Yeah.
out. And it's been on my quote unquote to read pile and or my to buy pile probably for the last year and a half. So I finally pulled the trigger on that. And
Yeah.
then what
I
else
can
did I
see it
get?
up there on the shelf.
Yeah, and I got the second volume of that Texas Blood. Another
Okay.
like young dynamic duo, another young team that
I've heard
really hypes me
excellent
up.
things. I have not gotten into it yet, but I've heard excellent things.
I read the first volume and I enjoyed it. And I've heard that it only gets better from there. And again, just to see another pair of young creatives in Chris Condon and Jacob Phillips just like
Yeah.
kicking ass and taking names gets me hyped.
Oh yeah.
Definitely makes me hungry to create cool things that
Yeah.
not that it's competitive, but like I want to create stuff at that level, and just yeah, you just want to create, like, for a complete lack of words from somebody who claims to write for half their living. uh yeah, I just want to make cool shit.
Yeah.
Like, that's it, man.
I think that's most of the time that's the underlying thought of everything is I want to make cool shit.
Yeah, 100%.
And so most people don't actually get to say it. So just yell that from the rooftops and let everyone know.
Oh, I will. Yeah, you'll hear me screaming from BarCon at Baltimore this coming year. Just like screaming in the middle of nowhere, screaming in the middle of the floor that I just want to make cool shit, and then probably getting panned by the rest of the industry.
Yeah. Um, yeah. No, I just like it's funny is like tweeting things out sometimes and you're just like, what's gonna do well? And I
Mm.
just tweeted I love comics and that's doing semi well versus like I'm like, hey, everyone come watch us tonight.
Yeah,
That
you
doesn't
never
go that
know.
doesn't get seen by as many people. I'm like, all right, well, if you love that's why like I tagged you in the other comment after that. I was like, well, if you love comics so much, come watch us talk.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, I can relate. I had one that like blew up. It got like 500,000 views where I had asked Comics Twitter about a really good interaction they had with a creator that they admire. and everyone and their mom hopped in on that, commented, retweeted, and then I put like in that thread, I was just like, hey, if you would show like half as much love to my pinned tweet, I would super appreciate it. Got me nowhere.
Yeah.
AKA my pinned tweet being the link to the Kickstarter. So, there's that.
I think my best tweet to date was announcing the nomination show for the Indies Awards.
Mm-hmm.
And then because I posted the kind of like the thing, and I put the link to the YouTube video that hadn't happened yet. Well, I forgot I already had the link to the voting attached to that. So I think it was Marquise Nasso from By the Horns. He saw that. He went to the list. He saw that By the Horns was nominated and tweeted it out, retweeted, and then it just like snowballed from there. I was like, well, this is awesome, but we haven't even gotten to talk about these nominees, and there's already like 150 votes. I was like, okay, well, this happened.
The people are ambitious, to say the least, huh?
Yeah, but I mean, it was cool because it got some creators interacting with it, and were like, hey, this is cool. We got nominated. But yeah, advertising things, getting word out about projects is super weird on Twitter.
Listen, I mean, I'm still so fresh to it. Trying to find a way to market comics online, particularly just trying to find a balance in my approach. Like I mean, I'm a very opinionated guy, and I don't stray from that. But it's also, I want to be able to show support to the other people in the space that I believe in, and avoid the social politics of it all. Not actual politics, but the social politics. Because I think sometimes people in the space and in comics, and I assume it's the same for most other industries, is that you feel compelled or you feel guilty if you don't do a certain thing or behave a certain way. And I'm not really in for like performative shows of support for several reasons, primarily because it's disingenuous, but because I want to give everything I have to give to the creators and to the projects that I believe in and whose voices I want to champion. And if I spread myself thin by showing support or kind of giving a little bit too much of myself to the projects that, I feel guilted into supporting, then it's just like I give everybody half-baked support as opposed to really being able to put myself behind, like I said, the people that I believe in. So that's certainly a balance I'm still trying to find in terms of marketing the material.
And it's hard because there's a lot of good projects out there right now, especially like in the last week. I feel like a ton have dropped, or at least the like February projects ending in February. There are a ton. Let me see. I've got this open. I don't know how many I have currently that will be ending in that, but probably too many. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 ending in February, but I have 9 that are ongoing right now. 1 ends at the end of January. Thoughtscape.
Yeah. That project looks pretty interesting. He and I have Matt and I have corresponded a little bit via DMs to see if we might be able to kind of help him get that last little push he needs.
Yeah, I really want to see this succeed. I've read first 2 of them. I loved it. It's got Carl Slominski's art in some of the stories. I have some of Carl's original art, so cool. I'm a big fan of his art and a big fan of what Matt's doing with the project. So it's good to hear other people are like, yes, let's do this, let's make this happen.
Because
I know he's really funding 2 volumes of it in this Kickstarter. So he had put higher goals to fund the 2 volumes. So I'm like, please succeed.
Yeah, that's a big feat, man. That is certainly a big thing to put in front of yourself. So I hope he's able to knock it out of the park and get that thing made, because, well, I don't think there even needs to be, because, to be honest,
we all just want to see it. We all want to see every indie creators succeed, whether we're backing their project or not.
Mm-hmm.
Because that means more cool comics are being made.
Mm-hmm.
There's something out there for everybody.
For sure. Totally agreed. Totally agreed. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. It's comics, you got to build that strong army of people who are going to be willing to do their best to push the entire medium in front of other people, like comics. Unfortunately, American comics have failed to um establish themselves as something as ubiquitous as manga might be in Japanese culture. And I think that kind of gives us unfortunately an uphill battle in trying to sustain any real positive trajectory in the industry. Whereas, manga in Japan has no problem, getting out there, making money, selling books. And it's because despite the fact, that there is a lot of competition for the entertainment dollar in 2023, it's such a firmly embedded part of their culture in a way that comics have unfortunately failed to do in America. So now it falls upon, the independent voices who don't want to repeat the mistakes of these larger entities and actually hopefully begin to establish comics foothold on our culture in a way that we haven't been able to do before, because comics are I mean they're one of the only two things that America can claim in terms of art. It's comics and jazz, and neither one of those things are particularly popular at the moment.
Yeah, it's fair. I mean, living in New Orleans,
True. Yeah. Your view is a little bit skewed.
The
But I will
jazz here is a little bit bigger, but the rest of the U.S., yeah. And then comics, yeah, it's always interesting because it's like how, from my perspective, doing this and talking to creators, and it's like, how can I reach those people that aren't already interested in comics? That's the gap that's hard to cross and bring, new viewers in that aren't maybe already comic fans.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't figured out an answer to that, but if we can figure that out and we get maybe people even just like entertained by the YouTube content first, like people with games, right? Like there'll be people that will watch the let's play kind of things where they're going through playing the full video game and you watch them. And then eventually they're like, man, now I want to play that game. And they go and start becoming a gamer after that.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know how to do that without like violating copyrights of comic books and going through the whole comic on a stream and like being like, hey, yeah, you should really go read this. I'll read it to you for now, but
yeah, really, I think a big part of that is doing what you're doing and getting creators out to talk about, what the passion that drove them to create these stories. And you just hope that, maybe the stories sound interesting enough where people who might not have otherwise been reading comics are willing to take that leap, and I think a big part of it is that these entities are creating these massive multimedia juggernauts based off of comics and still can't manage to sell their comics. It's kind of astounding to me that they, I think it's a shame that, because in a world where everybody's waiting for a post-credit scene anyways, that there's no moment with a QR code where people can download the digital, the first part to the story that inspired the movie digitally for free, to get people in. You get people in the door that way, and it gives people a place to start, because comics can often, particularly when it comes to superhero comics and the massive legacies that they carry with them, people don't know where to start ever. And like at that point, it becomes a barrier to entry, in addition to the expense and such. So I think at this point, knowing that those larger entities aren't going to be the ones to move and shake and make changes, it does fall upon the independent community to try to find ways to reach out and just find the people that want to read good stories.
Speaking of that, where can people pick up a good story on Kickstarter right now?
Yeah, you heard the man. 100%. You can grab the whole series in one big move, 6 issues, so it's digestible. You have a definitive beginning, middle, and end. and you get something that's made by a creative team that cares about what they do and cares about honing the craft. I think that I'm always really proud about where we are now versus where we were when we started the story. And I was always proud of where we started. I always felt that we had a pretty high floor, but I think I probably said this to you when we first met in Baltimore, is that, my first work is my worst work. And so if you like that first one, you're going to like the rest. And, I think that this story has evolved into something really special, and really personal, and something that I think a lot of people can relate to, whether they are the traditional comic book reader or not.
Absolutely. Speaking of, are you? I don't want to keep you too late, but I did have one other question I wanted to ask you.
Sure.
Are you, going forward? I know this one's wrapped up
Mhm.
after this Kickstarter. You got any other projects that you're working on, or
I
going
do.
forward, do you plan to try to tackle multiple stories at once?
Yeah. 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 Great question. I am in the middle of starting art production on a couple of stories for an anthology that I'll be publishing through Kickstarter probably middle of this year.
Okay.
The title is Minutes to Midnight, The Hour Between Life and Death, and it's a collection of short stories written by me, each with a new artist, some familiar, some brand new that I've met over the last year and some change of doing Comic Cons and just making friends on the internet. And it gives us the opportunity to play in a lot of different spaces. So while I adore being able to play in that alien sci-fi space, this is giving me the opportunity to tell stories in ways that I've not yet been able to do, and also to kind of prove that creatively I can't be pigeonholed into one thing. So one of my favorite stories in the anthology, actually, and that'll be drawn by my returning collaborator from the last two issues of the Helix Project, Samuel Iwunze. We're doing like a detective story
Mhm.
with a supernatural twist to it that I'm really stoked about, and it actually involves a somewhat alternative history to the town that I grew up in, which is a lot of fun. And then I'm working with a really talented Mexican artist named Steph C, who is working diligently on this coming of age story that we're actually planning on syndicating a chapter in every anthology I do moving forward. So you actually really you get to grow up with that character in a way.
Hmm.
And she's doing some incredible work. Like I feel like every time I get pages back from her, she's just like, "Oh yeah, do you have any notes?" I was like, "Nope." Like there's nothing.
Beautiful.
Yeah. They're beautiful, and it's just different. Like I get to work with collaborators that have different sensibilities and different styles, and all of them are doing great things. And I get to learn a lot by working with them. Like Steph has, which you guys should go follow her. She's incredibly talented. She's about to publish a graphic novel through TKO. But
Okay.
I mean, she has this incredibly expressive style, both in the way that she constructs the flow of her line work, but also in how she colors. And I think through the pre-planning, we were able to establish a really interesting visual identity for the story that we're doing together. And she nails it. You'd be hard pressed. Yeah, you'd be hard pressed to find an artist
Jeez.
who has that sense of style, but is also an incredible visual storyteller and can design a page in such a way that the reading experience just feels so seamless. And then we got a couple of other fun stories, like a story about these immortal soldiers that reconvene throughout the course of history at every major war known to man. And it's ultimately a story about conflict, and it's something that means a lot to me, and I think is very representative of the unnecessary division that we face as a people, as a human race. And there are a couple other really fun stories in there that I won't spoil at all, but I'm really really excited, just to be able to
Yeah.
play in all those different spaces and work with all this different talent. And that is we're aiming for around a 72-page book, so it's going to be hefty. It's going to be ultimately very digestible because they're all short stories. And again, for somebody who's really a material junkie, I really want to make it something premium that's going to sit well on the shelf.
Yeah. Nice, fancy looking thing.
I'm hoping. I am hoping
Not
for sure.
not Marvel paper quality.
No, we're not putting it back on newspaper print.
God, that's the one thing. Like when I pick up comics, I'm like, if the ink ends up on my hand, I'm putting it back on the shelf.
Yeah, and that's always been like a selling point of mine too, even with the Helix Project floppies. For
Yeah.
anywhere from $5 to $7 on average, you're gonna get some of the best paper quality in the
Hmm.
industry. No advertisements, paper stock that's 2 to 3 times thicker than what you're getting at most of the larger publishers. So, you know, if I can't sell you on the storytelling and the incredible artwork that
Hmm.
Jeremy showed you guys scrolling through the Kickstarter, then just know it's a value. It's the value is there in the physical product.
Yeah, and these covers are really cool.
That cover is just like what my dreams are made of. I'm not even gonna lie.
If that's what your dreams are made of, I can't wait to see what other stories come out of your brain.
Oh man, I'm super excited. I'm really really stoked for what we get to do moving forward. I've learned so much getting to work on the Helix project, and I feel like I've matured even more so as a storyteller and as a collaborator. So
Yeah.
I'm really excited. Like going through this press circuit to promote the book, a lot of folks have asked me how I feel ending my first story, and I actually feel great. I feel really excited because now that I'm getting to see these artists' renderings of all these new characters, it's like I'm meeting friends that I've known for a long time, but it's like the first time I'm meeting them face to face. And
Yeah.
and so despite kind of saying goodbye to this cast of characters, um, it still feels kind of enriching and exciting, and it's all new territory for me being so early on in my career.
Yeah. It's and you're gonna get to work with your current artist again, so that's
We've
pretty exciting.
that the story that Sam will be working on in my anthology is something I am incredibly proud of because I mean, just like selfishly, I enjoy really like writing the voice of like a gritty kind of disheveled detective.
Yeah.
And a lot of my influences kind of have that same bender. Like I read a lot of Brubaker, Brian Hill, who's a guy whose name is not mentioned enough, is a major influence on mine. And so getting to really channel that into that this new story with Sam, of which actually he's doing all of the art for, like pencils, inks, colors.
Oh wow.
So
Yeah.
we're really trying to do something different and push ourselves stylistically in that story, despite maybe not having like the grandiose features of sci-fi. It really lets us lean into um, the nuts and bolts of the storytelling in a way.
Awesome. Anything else with the project that you want to plug, put out there?
A thank you to Eric in the comments for the
Yeah.
congratulations. It means a lot. It's a good place to be, but we're always aiming for onward and upward, and trying to put ourselves in a position to make sure our artists are getting taken care of and put us in a position to work with new artists. So yeah, always trying to climb. But for anybody listening, I appreciate you guys enduring my caffeineless babble. Um, and despite that, I hope you'll consider checking out the Kickstarter because it does a far better job at articulating why this story is so special to me than I probably can right now. There's a lot of beautiful artwork by this team that I am absolutely privileged to work with. And for the doting collector out there, at bare minimum, you're going to get some beautiful cover art to put on your shelves that I think competes with anything out there. But first and foremost, it was something that was made on a very personal level. It was written by somebody at the time who had no idea who they were and what they wanted to be in a world that very much tries to tell you or define what those things are to you. And I think ultimately, despite being a sci-fi story about aliens, it's really relatable, and I think it's something that comes across in every element of the storytelling. And that's like shout out to the creative team that I have the privilege of getting to make that with, man. So Samuel Ibunze, Marcio Ferreri, Taylor Esposito on letters, and even the prior artist Marcelo Salaza. We wouldn't be here if not for those guys.
Absolutely. Where can people follow you and see what else is going on?
Thank you. Thank you, Eric. That's very kind of you to say. You can find me on Twitter at PWatchPress because we like to truncate words over there, and Facebook and Instagram Pocket Watch Press. I do have a personal Instagram that people have seemed to have taken to following, so I'm like trying to
I think
learn
when I
how to
went
not be a complete weirdo on there.
be as weird as possible on there. I think when I went to find you originally, it found that, and then it found Pocket Watch Press. So
Listen, I just mostly feel bad for you because you get to see how weird I am outside of comics.
yeah, it's all
But
right.
if anybody wants to follow that one, it's Court of Gotham, and instead of spaces, there are underscores. But ultimately, I hope you guys check out the Kickstarter. It's really cost effective. If you find yourself wanting to read the story but might not have the most disposable income, you can catch up on the entire series for $25, and you get both editions of issue 1 and the second one of which Jeremy owns. Has some really great behind the scenes features on how we sort of approach the development of some of the artwork. And if you want to get the floppies, like I said, they average anywhere from like $5 to $8 or so. And you're getting a premium printed product. So there's value there, and there's a story that I think matters at least somewhat. So it should be worth it. Help us get stretch goals, because I'm a bad businessman and I like to give you all free upgrades. So if there's any other incentive to back the Kickstarter, tell some friends. I don't know what would possibly compete with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And always a retweet, post, anything always helps the project, even if you can't support financially.
Totally. Oh, and I guess if anybody is watching this that lives out near New York City, I'll be signing in Queens, New York, Long Island City, at Everyone Comics this weekend for their Lunar New Year festival. I think we'll be there from 2. I'll be there from 2 to 5. So come, let me vandalize your comics. Let me babble on about things that don't actually exist. And I don't know, like, yeah, I guess that's all I got.
Well, thanks for coming on and talking, and thanks everyone who's been watching. Really appreciate it.
Hey man, thank you for having me. It was definitely a pleasure to, like I said, be able to chat without the fear of being trampled by Stranger Things fanatics.
Yeah, there were a lot of them at the convention this time around.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, thanks everyone again, and catch you actually tomorrow night. I'll be back on again with another guest to do another Kickstarter plug. Good night, everybody.